Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Hailing from sunny Central Florida, I'm Brett Jensen. I am joined by my brother Eric Jensen from the beautiful Pacific Northwest, here once again for the Jensen program. Thank you for joining us. We've got a lot to talk about today, and we're excited to have you with us. Of course, if you would like to participate in the program, feel free in the description. There's a link in the Discord. Or you can chat in the live YouTube chat. And we'd love to have other people participate as well. But, in case you're not, we are the ones who are constantly right. So, you can just trust us, and that works too.
Most definitely.
So the first topic that we have today is I would like to talk about some sports, some USC football. Let's go ahead and bring up, this is, of course, some highlights of Caleb Williams, the quarterback at the University of Southern California. And let's just take a couple of moments and appreciate how incredible this gameplay is. Tremendous amount of pressure. It's Taj Washington for the touchdown. Again, extra pressure. You can see 5 guys coming. The offensive line helps, but this is all Caleb Williams. Tremendous amount of pressure. Gets the first down.
Spins out of tackles.
Again, huge amount of pressure. Finds Jordan Addison wide open. This one may be the one that's just ridiculous. Spirals back. Decides to go for it. Pushes guys out of the way. Finally goes down.
All of this against Notre Dame.
That was just icing on the cake. It's so sweet to beat the Irish. And it was an Irish team that a lot of people thought was going to show us something that we hadn't seen before.
The power couldn't stop. Yeah.
This is, we got one more good one. The long ball, the short ball, just excellent decision making. Quick release there to Taj Washington. Still on his feet, disguises it. Absolutely incredible. And I think that's where he got injured.
Yep.
Things kind of were a little bit tougher for USC after that point, but I mean, when you look at this, it's plain to see USC did not have a phenomenal offensive line. We had some good guys, and they would make some good, important blocks, and good things happened. It was an improvement from what we had seen previous years, but this was a lot of Caleb Williams on display.
He like, if we, as much as I liked, some of our previous quarterbacks, like Jackson Dart and stuff, if we still had Jackson Dart, we would not have made it as far last year. Caleb Williams did an amazing job of carrying the team. And, yeah.
So the question is there anyone in the country that can do this kind of thing? How likely is it that Caleb Williams becomes the second player to receive 2 Heisman trophies?
So the question is really, like, how does USC do? Because since he's already won the Heisman Trophy, there will be a bias against him. They don't want to give him a second one, and they will look to give someone else. So if USC loses a couple of games, even if he has a year even better than last year, I don't think he'll get it, just because they'll be looking to give someone else the Heisman Trophy. So I think a lot of it has to depend on USC in totality to get him that Heisman. There are a couple other players, even in the Pac-12 itself, that I think have a legitimate shot of also challenging him for the Heisman Trophy. I don't think there's anyone that does the things that he does. I think there's a reason why everyone is saying he'll be the number one pick in the draft. He doesn't seem to have much weakness. He doesn't get frazzled. He doesn't lose composure. He makes good decisions all the time, and he's got enough athleticism to just be scary. But there are a couple. Washington, Oregon have some quarterbacks. Who is it? Drake May at North Carolina is also pretty good. And again, I think it's got to be a quarterback. The thing is, it's normally the quarterback from the good team, and a lot of these good teams, like in the SEC and whatnot, Georgia, they don't have any proven quarterbacks there. Like the most proven quarterbacks you're getting are like other than Pac-12 quarterbacks here, which the Pac-12 is loaded. You have Texas with Quinn Ewers, maybe, but I don't believe in Sark, so I don't think that's going anywhere.
We've seen that one before.
Yeah. Good quarterback. Yeah, as a head coach, I just don't see it. But so realistically, I think there's a good chance.
Yeah, and agree. Like, in order for a quarterback to win, it's based on the success of the team. And the biggest weakness at USC, as we saw from the problems that we had last season, was on the defensive side of the ball, which is something Caleb Williams can't even control to a large extent. Like, maybe he can, help motivate some people, and he did what he could, painting his nails or whatever. But looking at the recruiting and the transfer portal and some of the things that we've tried to do defensively, I think we're moving the right direction.
The other thing on the defensive side of things, if that improves, I mean, how many games was there last season when the opposite team just ran the ball and tossed the ball and went straight down the field, eating up tons of time? I mean, the Cotton Bowl was that to a T.
Yeah.
I mean, USC could not get off the field on defense. But what's that doing? If USC can get a few stops earlier in drives, that's just giving more opportunity for Caleb Williams to get more stats.
Which he is adept at doing. Yeah, it's absolutely 100%. And it seems like we're putting some things together. And I mean, obviously we'll have to see. Like, I would like to think that schematically the coverage is going to be a little bit smarter, and we're not going to see missed tackles. God, that's so painful. That was so painful. When you have a guy that's in the right position, it looks like the defensive coordinator has called the right play, and they just watch the runner go by them, and you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And I think that's, like, USC, if anything else, they're getting more depth. Once we lost a couple guys to injury on defense, I mean, there wasn't anyone else to go in and make a play.
Yeah.
And this year we have got more players that can hopefully step into a role at least. So if someone comes down, it's not a complete, you might as well throw me out there and we'll do as well.
Yeah. I may not have skill, but I've got heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so excited to see more football this season. And it's not that much longer until we're there.
Next month. We get a game next month, less than 50 days away.
That's so exciting. it'll be a great season. I'm very much looking forward to it.
One other point for Caleb trying to repeat the Heisman. The season sets up well for him to do that as well, in that he's got lots of easier games, at least on paper, you would say, to build up some stats and get momentum going. And then he has game after game against what should be really tough teams to sort of cement the case at the end of the season. If he can get through those, there's a good case to be made for a repeat Heisman.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. All right, let's go ahead and change gears. From talking about sports, we're going to talk a little bit about some stuff that's been going on in entertainment, in the movie industry. And so let's start by looking at a little piece from this trailer, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Get him. Hitler made mistakes, and with this, I will correct them all. You stole it. Then you stole it.
And then I stole it. It's called capitalism.
This way! Fasten your seatbelt. There might be some turbulence.
You've taken your chances, made your mistakes, and now a final triumph.
Give him hell, Indiana Jones! A few times in my life I've seen things. I've been tortured with voodoo. Been shot 9 times, including once by your father. Sorry! But I've been looking for this all my life.
All right. So,
Okay.
You have seen the movie. I have not yet. So we're going to have a spoiler-free discussion. But I'll tell you a couple of my impressions just from what I've seen so far. The trailer, obviously the music is very catchy. And it looks like they've brought back a lot of the nostalgia. We've got, throwing the whip. If I can find that scene. And he's throwing the whip. And they brought back Sala. John Rhys Davies is a phenomenal actor. I have never been disappointed with any of his performances in anything. I just love when he's there. So when I saw him, that made me smile. On the other hand, there's a lot of rumors that the woke machine at Disney has once again injected a lot of politics and kind of ruined a classic and that sort of thing. So, in a spoiler-free way, what's your thought on this?
So I thought the movie was entertaining. It definitely had some flaws. I think it was definitely better than the Crystal Skull. that one. But again, going spoiler free here, it runs into some problems on the plot line, in my opinion, at least. They start out and they sort of do the CGI younger a little bit, and they started in World War II, and the CGI actually looks pretty good, I think, at least on that front. And that's just it's maybe a little over the top, but it's Indiana Jones, and so it's okay. It's very entertaining. And then my one thing, and this isn't just with an Indiana Jones, this is with a lot of things, they sort of, when there's an older character I don't think you necessarily need to make him a miserable old person. Sort of like Luke in Star Wars, and
Get an angry drink the green alien milk.
yeah. Nah, they. I just don't understand why you can't have They can still go on an adventure without being,
Miserable.
Miserable. Yes, I would say that would be a good thing. As far as like the wokeness goes, I mean, they do have this main lady character that's in there. I don't think. I mean, she does some somewhat unrealistic things for a lady to do, but I don't think they're pushing it too much in the movie. At least I didn't come out of it going, that's, she wasn't my favorite character, but I think they did an all right job of morphing her in. Where they did a pretty good job, I think they had a great villain. He was good. I mean, we're back to Nazis. I think you could have had a villain without the Nazis, but they love Nazis. Indiana Jones likes to beat Nazis. But the going as spoiler free as possible, it's really at the end of the movie with the climax. There's just some plot things that, in my opinion, don't add up and don't make sense, and really sort of tear down the movie because of it. And I've heard some explanations, and they're good explanations, I guess, but to me it still doesn't sort of fit, sort of like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Last Crusade did.
Right. And I will say about the Indiana Jones franchise in general, Raiders of the Lost Ark was incredibly entertaining. And people like to point out, as kind of a jab at the plot, Indiana Jones wasn't necessary to anything that happened in Raiders of the Lost Ark. It all would have gone the same way had he not been present. And it's like, well, I can, even if that's true, it was enjoyable to go with him on this journey. And he had a great performance. And his interactions with people were great. And his involvement and his choices, it made it an enjoyable thing. And of course, yeah, I mean, if I sit back and think about it, you've got Belloc, the Frenchman, who's like, oh, but what is the Ark? It is a radio for talking to God. Like the least godly man that you could imagine is now interested in a radio to talk to God. I mean, for what reason? He's discarded everything that God has said that he should do his whole life in order to get ahead himself. But it's still entertaining. And you open the Ark and the faces melt. It was great.
Ever.
And the little Nazi guy, the short guy that liked to torture everybody. What an incredible performance he gave. It comes out with the hanger and now what shall we talk about? It's so good. And of course, The Last Crusade was perhaps one of the greatest movies of all time. I absolutely loved it, beginning to end. The performance that Sean Connery gave is kind of a... He had an obsession. He wasn't necessarily a good father, but he did have some principles that he insisted on, and he thought that was what was most important. That's what he would instill in his son. And without his mom being there, you can kind of see that, affected Indiana. And so it was a believable setup. And of course, like the trials at the end to get the Grail, that's just absolute gold.
Oh yeah, and I do agree. Like, I think Indiana Jones movies are more of, we're going on an adventure with Indiana Jones and watching him interact and sort of grow and get there. And I can see how in this latest movie that there would be some that say that's what happens in this one, and that's the point of this movie as well. I just to me, there's just
a little
I
too
can see
much.
a little hole there. That I can see what they did, but and I needed someone to like sort of explain. Like after I had to like read a little bit and go, oh, that's what they were trying to do. Oh, that's what made sense. But
And if you have to do that, they have failed telling the story.
yeah,
If they have to have an exposition after.
to make that growth point that we saw in Raiders of the Lost Ark or Last Crusade with him getting together with his dad and that relationship growing. Yeah, I think I mean they have it, but you almost need someone to explain it.
Gotcha.
At least someone like me. I mean, I need someone. You don't need me explaining it.
Maybe we do. Maybe we do. We are looking for correct opinions, after all.
That is true. So overall, ranking wise, I would say it goes Last Crusade, Raiders of the Lost Ark, probably Temple of Doom, and then this one, and then Crystal Skull.
Ooh. I did not like Temple of Doom.
You didn't like Temple of Doom. I'm okay with Temple of Doom. Again, that's one that nothing happens really, but
yeah.
I could definitely see this one being better than Temple of Doom as well. I think I'd have Temple of Doom a little bit higher, but I could see that on that's about the level I would have it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, speaking of the silver screen, we've got another one that I'd like to talk about. Let's go back to our view and let's talk about the DC universe. This is a clip from the trailer for The Flash.
Time. But Bruce, I can fix things. I can save people. I can save my mom. I can save your parents.
You can also destroy everything.
Love you, Mom.
I love you too.
So how was it this week? How's school?
School was good. Oh, this is mad trippy. Dude, this is catastrophic.
This world must die.
That's CGI there.
I'm not gonna lose her again. It's not Clark.
My name is Kara. I will help you.
Interesting group. Want some help?
And the Michael Keaton Batman.
Wait, he's Batman?
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Oh, this rips!
All right. Well, we kind of get the idea here. This is so my understanding, and I haven't seen this film either, but I intend to. I think my understanding is this is the end of the Snyderverse, and they're using this idea of Flashpoint to set up where James Gunn is taking the DC universe from this point and kind of undoing everything that Zack Snyder did that now Warner Brothers is uninvesting in. It's apparently being called, I keep seeing these headlines places, that this is the worst superhero flop of all time. Which is surprising to me, because there have been some serious flops. I mean,
Catwoman.
Elektra. I mean, the newer Fantastic Four was, I think, kind of poorly received. 2001 Hulk, that wasn't very well received. But
Green Lantern.
Green Lantern, maybe it is. And I understand that part of it is this whole thing with Ezra Miller, the actor that they have playing the Flash, who's ended up being, it seems like, based on reports, allegedly, he's a scumbag. That certainly doesn't help. But also, the other thing about the Flash, I have, like, one of my, I suppose you could call it a guilty pleasure. I have absolutely enjoyed the series The Flash that was in the Arrowverse on CW. And it used actor Grant Gustin to portray the Flash. And especially in those first seasons, the dude was just the most likable guy. They did a great job making him a likable character, and you just, they had some clever things that they did with the story the first season, and I enjoyed the first 3 seasons really, and then it started to show that they didn't really have a plan for where they were going.
It was the CW.
It was the same thing with, like, the Arrow. It started like as this, we're not going to have any powers. It's just this gritty, you have failed this city. And it ended with, like, they had, like, a different team in the future that was... it wasn't even the same team. It wasn't the same thing. It was a different show. And how many times were they going to stir up the same drama of, well, the reason that I lied to you was to protect you. Oh, I don't know if I can forgive you. Oh, I guess I will by the end of the season. Okay. And, you know, you rehash that however many times, and it's like...
It's a teenage drama.
With superhero costumes.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at the CG that we saw with some of this stuff in the Flash, and I'm thinking, with how much money they put into this, is this really what we're wanting to put on the screen? This was the final product?
Just of CG, I saw a little clip or meme or something of, like, pictures of movies from 2003 of, like, Lord of the Rings and Pirates of the Caribbean and CGI on that, and then some of the stuff today.
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, it was a lot better in 2003.
And like, I've heard people explain that by saying, you know, these CG studios are under a lot more pressure to produce more, quicker, cheaper, and that may be. Everybody kind of expects that. It's not the thrilling spectacle that James Cameron somehow was able to convince people to buy tickets when he showed Avatar, which for the life of me, I don't understand how that movie was. How anybody looked at that and said, "Oh, what a great film! I'd like to see that again. I'd like to tell my friends to go see it." It was just Pocahontas in space. Just
yeah, it was very boring and long.
It was so long, and you could say, "Oh yeah, but the visuals." That's a long time to sit and look at those visuals. And sure, yeah, the visuals were impressive. I expect something more from a movie.
Yeah.
So, DC storytelling. We'll probably have another episode where we talk about Marvel, which I think we both are probably more invested in.
Mm-hmm.
But talking about DC generally, James Gunn is kind of taking the helm. DC storytelling. What do you think they can do at Warner Brothers or whoever's... It's still Warner Brothers going to do DC. What are they going to do to make this work? Can they make it work?
To me, what I would do is sort of go the opposite of Marvel. And I would not try and make a multiverse thing. I think when you do that, there's just the power levels of the DC heroes are so vastly different that they don't, like in a cartoon you can sort of see it happening. In the live action movie it just doesn't work. If you want a Superman movie, you have to have a villain that is at least as strong as Superman, which means that he's stronger than any other hero in the DC universe, basically.
So the counterpoint is, what about Hulk? You know, when Tony Stark says, we have a Hulk, isn't that the counter? Isn't that like the World War Hulk? The Superman counter?
I would say yes, other than yes, I think Marvel is, I think as Marvel continues, and I guess we'll get to Marvel, but I think Marvel is having this problem creep into their stuff now. Sure. Where there's just, I mean, you've got Black Widow and you've got Hulk, and for some reason they're doing the same stuff.
Hawkeye, I love you, but you're shooting arrows.
Yeah. And so I think going back on the DC side of things, if you can get like the Dark Knight trilogy, sort of that side of thing, get something that fits in with those characters. Now, I haven't seen the Shazam 2 movie and how they, combine those. I thought that was actually a pretty good one, the first one.
Agree.
Of introducing a newer character that most, unless you're into DC, you probably hadn't heard much of him. And it was sort of his own thing, even though with a touch of Man of Steel. And I mean, you can throw in an Easter egg here and there, I guess. But I think it's a lot smarter. Or even the Wonder Woman one, the first Wonder Woman movie, it was just her. She was just doing her thing. And I think there was more success when that happened. Even the Superman movies, when it was just Superman, I think it was better than, yelling Martha. It's that, I mean, and
what did you say?
So if I were DC, that's what I would do. Like, instead of, like in the Flash trailer there, I mean, you had Supergirl, you had, I mean, you have so many things that they're trying to combine, and I think at some point you're losing the essence of the character you're trying to make a movie of.
Certainly we saw that in like what Sony did with the end of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, where everybody was really excited for a Venom story, and they threw in like the Sandman and the Hobgoblin or
Green Goblin.
They threw all of this stuff in, and then like had this emo Tobey Maguire thing going. Yeah, because when you're evil, you like jazz music. That's what I learned from that. Certainly that speaks to your point that having and it certainly speaks to the point of how Marvel built their stuff with Tony Stark doing an Iron Man thing, and it was about him, and they threw an Easter egg in with the possibility of we're gonna do some more, but if it didn't work, it didn't work, and that was okay too. And certainly with Wonder Woman, you saw that, and I agree. There's a lot going on. I would say, as far as Superman, I have yet to see an adaptation of Superman that I think is good. I think that there are some that have been kind of impressive visually. They've had entertaining moments, but it's not ever what I would have done with the character.
Are you including like the cartoon or comic book movie or cartoon movies as well, or just live action?
I haven't seen a lot of the animated stuff.
Okay.
That's fair. And they might have some good stuff. And honestly, like when we were hanging out in college days watching Justice League on Cartoon Network, that was always like with our cousin, that was entertaining times. But they always seem to have, with that Justice League animated show, they would have a 2-part thing where they'd set it up with an intriguing story, and they'd get some scenario in that was interesting, and they'd find a way to make it dumb and stupid in the second part without fail. I'd be like, ooh, I want to see what happens. And then after, it's like, oh, I could have saved like an hour of my life. It's hard to get to stick the ending when you've got like a really powerful character, and you've got some of these other things. That's tough to deal with.
And I think that's one of DC's biggest problems, is most of their characters are extremely powerful. And when you're watching, you're seeing Superman, and he's, knocking guys into outer space, and then the next moment he gets punched and he's flying, and it's just some lady that had no superpowers or anything. And you're like, I mean, that probably has never happened, but it's situations like that where there's no consistency throughout. I mean, obviously superheroes are not realistic, but you can build the system and then
honor the system.
Yes.
Stick to the system. And they even recognize, that is something about DC that they recognized, was like, Kal-El is out of control. And so they tried to reinvent him as Kal-El spelled differently. And then later had like a visitation of Kal-El and it was ridiculous. But I recall being a teenager watching the Dean Cain portrayal of Superman and Lois, and one of the powers that they displayed in an episode of that series was Superman twisted around so quickly that his molecules separated and he could go through a wall and then pull himself back together. And I remember thinking, like, since when was that something Superman did? That's stupid. He could do like, why did he do that? It was
when he
stupid.
could have just flown through the wall too.
He could have punched the wall. He could have like cold breath and then shattered it. He could have eye lasered. Any number of solutions within the existing rules, and they had to make some crap up. It is a problem to define the rules and stick within it.
And then the other thing you need is a good villain. And
True.
And DC has some good villains. Batman has plenty of good villains that they can use, but some of the other ones can be good. I haven't seen too many that have been used effectively, though.
Yeah, when they're portraying Lex Luthor in a number of these various things, it's like, what is his deal? Like, what is his... and the same with, like, the other Kryptonians, and a little bit disappointing. And that has been a contrast between what you see in Marvel. That's certainly been a part of their success, is having the right kind of villain. And they haven't got it all right, but I guess we'll save that for the Marvel discussion. So, on the subject of telling stories, I recall one of the things that really bothered me. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Supernatural. That was another CW or Warner Brothers show.
I didn't watch CW stuff. I just couldn't do it.
It was kind of based on this like idea of these demon hunters, and they actually had a really interesting arc that they were gonna do. It was supposed to be a 3-season arc where they had this demon that had killed their mother, and they're kind of out they're gonna hunt these things, and they're looking for clues and looking for a weapon that's going to help them defeat this demon. Kind of a compelling story. It was an interesting portrayal. They had some interesting things they did with the characters. And then they just said, our show seems to be successful. We're going to just make crap up. And they did. And it was just progressively dumber and dumber. And so many TV series fall into this trap. And I would say movies too. You get going and there's no plan. When you look at the Star Wars sequels, I mean, J.J. Abrams presented all of these intriguing hooks. Who is this Rey? Who were her parents? How is she connected to the Force? Where did Luke go? What happened with all of this? And who is this Supreme Leader Snoke? A lot of things that he kind of developed this tie to encourage the viewers to ask these questions. And then they never had a plan to answer them. And it's not the first time J.J. Abrams has done that. Like, everybody complained about Lost. There was another series he did with Jennifer Garner called Alias, where they were always after this, device that was invented by this Renaissance inventor. And they hadn't come up with what it was or what it did, even by the last season of the show where they're supposed to be wrapping it up. They didn't know. And so, at some point, I was a little bit frustrated with all of that. And I recall sitting down and saying, you know what people should do? They should just write the whole thing. Don't just write the first, and then if it's successful, then write more. And I understand, from a financial perspective, from a risk perspective, if you do the whole thing up front, that's a bigger risk. And not everything is going to be like Lord of the Rings, where you do all three up front and have it pay off. But it's better if you do. It's almost always better if you do than if you had not. And so that's one of the bits of news that I am excited to share, is that I have kind of used that approach in the production of a trilogy of sci-fi novels called The Source of All Curses. This is a project that I've been working on probably for the last between 7, 8, 9 years, somewhere in there. And it was get the whole trilogy done all in one go and make sure that it's all consistent before I release book 1. So they're all up on Amazon right now. You can search that, The Source of All Curses, and it's not too terribly expensive, but they're all there, and we invite all of our viewers to take a look at that. And if you enjoy good content, hopefully this will be of interest to you as well.
I've picked up my copy and I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yeah, I certainly am excited to. It was very rewarding to write, so even if we don't get a ton of people buying it, I liked writing it, and it's not the first time I've written. It's not going to be the last time I've written, but super fun to write, and I hope that people enjoy it.
So brief little pocket summary of what it is.
So yes, excellent question. So the idea behind it, one of the ideas was there are a lot of people with superpowers, people exploring this idea of superpowers. And one of the ideas that had come into my mind is, what about anti-superpowers? Suddenly people are coming down with the superpower of giving people cancer, or their skin starts flaking off, or they drive people insane. That's their superpower. That would be horrific if you find out that you have this thing that's hurting yourself and those that you care about. And how would society respond to this situation? And so, of course, I started writing this before COVID was a thing. And then it kind of made me laugh. People are going to like look at this and think, oh, this is about COVID. It's actually something that I came to my mind before COVID. But the CDC was involved in like regulating things and shutting things down and trying to get this under control. And then there's other sci-fi elements. There's an extraterrestrial visit that occurs fairly early in the book. And so you've got the pressure of, now we've got extraterrestrials coming to the planet and we're worried about these curses. What's their reaction going to be if they find out about it? How do we keep this under wraps? How do we handle this? Where is it even coming from? And that's kind of the mystery that the main character finds themselves in, and you explore through this trilogy.
Nice.
So, very exciting. Thrilled to finally get that released. And yeah, that was a ton of fun. All right. The only other thing that I had on the agenda for today in our religious subject was testimony meeting in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on the first Sunday of the month. We invite members of our congregation to stand up and give a brief testimony. And sometimes the results are ridiculous and hilarious. Do you have an example, Eric, as I'm talking to you, do you have an example that you can think of the most ridiculous and hilarious testimony that you have heard from the pulpit?
My favorite one was a Tongan man who spoke almost no English, comes up to the pulpit, and he starts talking about the sun beats down on my chest. Take a gun, bam bam. What have I done? And I don't know. I don't know what was going on, or like he was shooting people, and it was quite entertaining. And I'm probably messing up some of the details, but it was a good one.
I remember that. I don't remember what he was trying. I don't think anybody else knew what he was trying to say. But I see my brother. Bang! I killed him. That's what he did, and I recall the bishop's eyes were like, what is going on here? Did we have a confession to a crime? You know, he's in that awkward position like, do I need to deal with something serious here? And of course not. He hadn't done that. He was talking about, like, if I can make a guess at what he was talking about. He was talking about how people have a tendency to be cruel to one another, and then he needs forgiveness after that happens. I don't know. I remember that very vividly. He was very vocal about shooting his brother.
Yes. Yeah.
And he shocked us all.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I would say most of the stories are less of an entertaining one like that one was, and more like, what are you doing up there? Either they're going on and on and on and on, or they are bringing up details that they should not be bringing up.
No kidding. Like, this is another part of storytelling in general where people could really benefit from having a plan, which doesn't mean like write out your testimony and read it. I don't think that's the right approach, but a mental outline of something that, like a couple of things that you want to testify of, and something that explains why that's been on your mind, or something that you've experienced that causes you to believe that Jesus is real, and that his church is legitimate, that the scriptures are true. And we get people that are telling you all of their medical history. And that's when I had this other procedure, and I went in, and like 20 minutes later, they'd say something about, so prayers are answered. And it's like, wow, you could have like saved a lot of time there if you just would have narrowed that down.
Answered?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people, I think, forget that the point of it is to just be brief and say something about testifying of who Jesus Christ is, how he's the Savior. So, somehow, whether it's about his church, whatever it is, it's supposed to be pointing everyone in the congregation to Jesus Christ so that the Holy Ghost can uplift everyone. And yeah.
So here's the question then. This tends to not be a unique experience, I don't think. I think almost everybody who's attended church on a regular basis encounters a testimony meeting that's weird. Why do we still do them then? Should they go away? What do you think?
I like having testimony meetings. I like the opportunity for people to come up and testify. I think that there is an opportunity to gain strength in one's testimony, and an opportunity to share that can be done in a talk or something, but hopefully there's more people and it's shorter, so more people can experience that. So I would say it's still worth having. I think that the problem comes, there should be plans on how to stop it from derailing. Whether it's you have specific people that will, like, if someone is one, the bishop probably should be, okay, let's tap someone on the shoulder, get the red light flashing on the pulpit or something. but then even having like certain people like asked beforehand, saying, how about if something is going on, if there's a lull, or if something is going off the rails, we need someone to bring it back onto track. I don't know.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, I mean, certainly you've got a tough balance. Like maybe somebody who is not articulate is getting up and they're trying to express something that is deep, faithful, and legitimate. And in that case, I would hate to tell that person, I'm sorry, you're not articulate enough for our congregation. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, you do have these things that can take away. And you hate to just say, I'm sorry, everyone else, but you just have to deal with these meetings that are not going to be uplifting. That's tough to handle. And I don't think there's one right answer, but I think what you are saying, that sometimes the bishop probably does have to step up. Certainly the church is very clear about these situations that you sometimes hear about where somebody has a pre-prepared statement that they've come and rip on the prophet and Joseph Smith and that sort of thing. That's definitely not the point of making the pulpit available for testimonies.
And I would say, I am very happy I am not the bishop. I would not want to have to do any of these things.
Same.
But I think, and I know that people won't listen, and that's the problem, is there are so many individuals that go up. But if you could say, like, limit it to, like, 2 minutes max, I think it would be so much more productive, rather than getting people up there that could use less than 30 seconds.
Yeah. It's true. That is something I do like about the ward that I'm attending, is that we do try and say, whoever the bishopric member is that's bearing their testimony, that's conducting that month, says we invite you to share a brief testimony based on the Savior Jesus Christ and his gospel and his restored church. And that has improved things. It's not perfect ever, and I mean it's never going to be perfect. We're imperfect people, but it is better, if nothing else, to at least keep things brief and give more people an opportunity to think about how they can express their faith. Yeah.
Our bishopric does the same thing in our ward. They always say, give a brief testimony about the Savior. The other thing, I don't mind if there's, like, if you're a smaller ward. I used to be in a smaller ward before they merged our wards over here, so now we're a larger ward. But I don't mind having I'd rather have a lull and quiet for 5 minutes rather than have someone up there that shouldn't be up there talking.
Even the scriptures support that. Like, it's not necessary for everybody to talk. In fact, that was one of my favorites in Proverbs. Even a fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise, and he that shutteth his lips is esteemed as a man of understanding. It's advice that I've sometimes taken and benefited by myself. You don't need to speak on everything. Sometimes just let it go.
Yep. So what is your opinion on you? I'm shooting the question back to you. What should we do with them?
I think we need to have them. We should share with one another and give one another opportunity to share testimony. A person is benefited by the bearing of their testimony, and speaking assignments are not frequent enough, and they're intimidating to a lot of people that just want a less formal way of being able to express publicly their faith in Jesus Christ. We have to keep them, but it would be good if we all put effort into improving them.
Yeah. Yep. And be ready to turn off the mic.
Have the counselor just with his hand right over the volume. Hit the power. Or the worst case, the cane to just yank him off.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. I think that's our program today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will have another program in the month of August, and so stay tuned to social media or this channel to see when that will be scheduled. We appreciate everyone's participation. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next program.
See ya.